guys. Welcome back to Having a Ball podcast. And today is a very special episode of our podcast. We have Keith Thibodeaux. Am I saying that right?
Thibodeaux.
Thibodeaux, of course, of I Love Lucy and played Little Ricky. And it's really an honor to have you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, ladies.
And in 2020, I think our world has, turned upside down a little bit. And I know that you have a school in Mississippi, right?
That's right.
At your school, was that running through the entirety of the pandemic, or did you guys kind of have to take a break at the height of things?
Well, we did. We had to have a short break that was several months, and then we had kind of a separate little. We have a separate workshop that we have every July that attracts normally between like 300 and 400 dancers from all over the world.
Wow.
And we had a really good. We had to adjust a few things because we couldn't have it at the same location that we normally have it at the university. So we had to have it at a hotel, and we used our studios, and it worked out good. We had some people who donated some space to us to have it. But all in all, I mean, we're really good, and we've thrived, and God has taken care of us. So it's a good thing.
And that's interesting because when I was, researching you and seeing the school that you run, I found it fascinating that from what I can see, it's built as the first of Dancing for Christ type of establishment. How did that come about?
Well, it came about because, my wife and I are both Christians and believers. And I became a believer before my wife. We were kind of nominal Christians and just, kind of just said, well, we're not Buddhist, we're not Mormon, we're not, this or that. We're Christian, I was raised Catholic, and but anyway, I was born again in 1974, and then my wife was born again later on at one of David and the Giants, which is my band, one of our meetings. And so she would travel with us she knew us when we were a regular band, a regular rock band. And then she also saw the change when we all became Christians and we became a Christian rock band. So we started traveling all over the US, and she saw how you could use music for the Lord. And we saw that it was in Psalms that you could do that and praise his name with the music, praise his name with the dance, Psalm 140, 49, 150. And so she looked for a way in a time when she could break away from her ballet company, which was at the time Mississippi Ballet, Mississippi. And so she resigned at a particular time and felt like it was time to try to do this pioneering effort of starting a Christian ballet company.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's incredible. And I do have another question. Do you still play? Either, the band or just any band, do you still play for fun?
I do. I play. I don't really play for fun. I play with the band.
Okay.
And but we play, various, like we're going to be playing in Indiana coming up. We're playing in South Mississippi. We did a 40th anniversary reunion, well, not a reunion, but a 40th anniversary David and the Giants concert in St. Louis about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I believe. And we've been to the Philippines. We did like a 2-week
Wow.
tour of the Philippines with the band. So yeah, we do this and that,
And
That's really cool.
when you spoke of when you first became born again, was that from their childhood being that of a child star and perhaps some sort of being lost afterwards and finding a purpose later on in your life?
Well, the cause of it, is obviously I was lost. I was I knew about God, but I didn't know God.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents separated and eventually divorced when I was 15 years old. So that was a huge part in my anger toward God at that, and then my consequential coming to the Lord after I joined the rock band and got into the sex, drugs, and rock and roll scene, and
Right.
the drugs, and my friends would do drugs, and just the problems that you would face. And then I got into I talk about in my book, Life After Lucy.
Yes.
I wrote a book in 1994, and talk about my depression, clinical depression, which is now known as clinical depression, and suicidal thoughts, and
Right.
just that kind of thing that sort of pushed me in the direction either I was going to die or I was going to have a life change. And thank the Lord that he came into my life. Jesus came into my life in 1974 and revealed himself to me, and I believed in him, and my life began to change from that point on.
Yeah, that's really when you speak of sort of going into a depressive mode, suicidal thoughts, things like that. People are so open about it now. People are so comfortable speaking of it now, but you've been speaking about it for ages because it was ever present in your life, and perhaps you masked it in other ways. So I mean, you were ahead of your time with that, but I think that's why I think your story is really a great one. We'll hit you with all the I Love Lucy stuff, of course, but I think your story alone is really one of you know pushing through whatever it is you were feeling or getting yourself into to a light at the end of the tunnel, which I think is really great. And I can see it on you, on your face, that you are living there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I'm putting on, or I'm trying to, I'm some sort of, cultish, hypnotic trance or something.
Yeah.
It's just my life.
No, I mean, I totally get that. And I think it's sorry, it's really important to have something, and I don't know what all of our believers are, but I know that being a Christian myself has helped me through countless many things. I mean, even now, um, and it's just a strong base, there's that whole building a strong foundation and going from there. And so, I mean, I think that's just so incredible that you found that when you needed to. I mean, God's always there, so but that you were willing and open to receive him at that point. And so that's really great.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in like the clinical depression and the suicidal thoughts back in those days, like you mentioned, it wasn't something that people talked about.
Right.
It was something, in fact, and then the interesting thing about it, I never had any kind of drugs or any kind of counseling to go along with all that, or ended up in a mental institution like I should have. But it was just God's hand on me through the whole thing, and sort of leading me and guiding me, and this miracle and that miracle of sort. And so that's why I'm here.
That's really awesome. And I, like I said, I think your story could really, whoever listens, you might be tuning in for Lucy stuff, but this can also help somebody because maybe somebody who struggles knows it's going to be okay. I mean, you could probably attest to you're going to be okay, no matter how much you feel like you're drowning sometimes.
Right.
And so your
And
story is that. And so, of course, your story does begin at a very young age. I mean, before we even started speaking, the idea of a 2-year-old playing drums or a 3-year-old professionally is mind boggling, because you can barely get them to sit down when you want 2 or 3 years old and you are a professional drummer. So if you could, a little bit of your journey, I'm sure you've told it countless times, but it's a fascinating one.
well, I began playing drums at around 2 years old, uh, and began on trash cans in the backyard and knives and forks, the whole normal bit. Margot, would you do me a favor and shut my door, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much. You're sweet. Thank you. Um, and so that led, a neighbor lady to hear me playing on the trash cans, and she told my parents about, I was making rhythm. This little kid was making rhythm on the trash cans, and she said, "You need to get your son a drum." So my dad got me a little toy drum, and then from that point on, it just morphed into more and more and more. And he finally got me a real drum, and I would be invited to Kiwanis Club meetings, different functions in town, high school things, and began to be known as this little drummer boy. And eventually, a man named Horace Heights, who had a show, some people might, that are like 90 years old might remember him. He had a show called the Horace Heights Swift Premium Hour.
Okay.
And it was a big band variety show that toured all over the US and Canada. And his show had also like a little side show, which he would have like a little amateur contest, like a Ted Mack amateur hour type of thing, where he would, feature local talent. And then you would win, somebody would win and then they'd get a prize or whatever. So he came to my hometown and my dad entered me in. My uncle actually entered me in, told my dad about it. And I entered the show in his talent contest and won that particular one in Lafayette, Louisiana. And that was kind of the beginning of my showbiz, big time showbiz career. My dad had asked Horace if I had any future in the show business, and he told my dad he didn't think I did. They already had a young drummer on the show, who was about 12 years old, and he said, we don't really need another young drummer because we've already got one. So then 2 weeks later he called and asked my dad if we would join the show because they had such a big feedback from my appearance that people were really wanting me to be on his show. So he brought me on the show as a regular. My dad quit his job at United Gas Company in Louisiana and started touring across the nation in Canada with the show as a regular.
That's a lot of work at such a young age.
Yeah. I mean, I had to leave my mom and, my brother.
Your life.
Yeah, my life, little life, young life. And, but it ended up in California, in LA, and that's when the audition came.
Did you feel during that young life of yours, perhaps not at the moment, but looking back, a lot of pressure that was placed upon you because you were now a starring role on one of the largest, shows ever, that perhaps did things depend upon you to continue being on the show?
Yeah. I mean, I went through several, sort of emotional type, the pressure, like you say,
Mhm.
sort of kind of got to me in my young age, and I began to stutter, uh, my lines,
Yeah.
and then I also, I just had some emotional type things, and Lucy gave me a week or 2 weeks off, and um, I had to have speech therapy, and they even had a hypnotist.
I saw that. I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, in my dressing room, do some of that stuff. Which as a Christian later on in life, I really, I believe that's part of the, something that I should not have been in, but it was what they thought was something that would be beneficial. So that said, I just continued to work through all that.
Right. And did you feel like perhaps at any time, because I think I've seen interviews where you speak of forgiving your father later in life from various things that went on, but perhaps the beginning, did you feel pushed? Did you feel like I just wanted to be a regular kid, but I'm being pushed in a direction that should be for grown-ups, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've done your homework. I really, I had a lot of unforgiveness from my dad, not only because of that, but because of, his relationship with my mom, and
Hmm.
um, had an affair and had a child by that affair, and broke our family up. And so these are things that I really, I really had unforgiveness in my heart. And the point that my dad pushed me, um, and sort of lived his life. His uh, his nickname before all this started with me was Hollywood in Louisiana,
Hmm.
and so they used to call him Hollywood, and like that was his nickname. And he was always a dapper dresser, and you know,
So I lived vicariously through you, you'd say.
yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah.
Okay.
And he
Yeah.
loved
Yeah,
show
and
business, and he loved the whole. He ended up working at Desi Lou,
Public
in
relations, I think.
public relations,
Hmm.
right? George Murphy, he worked under George, who worked for Desi Lou at the time, and was great friends with um, Desi Senior, and would go to Palm Springs and hang out with Desi, and Desi would have all these women, and they would
Right.
try to hide the women from Lucy, and all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I did want to ask, during this whole time, was there anyone in particular, family or not, that you felt was a support at this time that was really, um, just there to either,
Like in his corner.
yeah, in your corner rooting for you? Did you have anyone that was a
You,
support
you
for you?
you're talking about when I was on the show, or
Mm,
after that?
really just as a child actor, in general. So it could be on the show, after the show. Was there anyone in particular that kind of just was like, I'm here for you. Here, I'm a support for you. Or were you kind of
Well,
just on your own island?
I was basically on my own island, but on the show, Desi Senior was, I could identify with him more so than I could with Lucy.
Hmm.
And he was a percussionist like I was, and he was Latin, and had a foreign heritage. And being a Cajun, the Cajuns are kind of like foreign. They're like a foreign country. Uh, a lot of French heritage, and
Hmm.
so I kind of identify with him more. And he was a very generous person, and but I didn't really have anybody in particular that. I mean, my mother um, was more of a normal. She just wanted to be a housewife. I'm the oldest of six
Right.
children, so she she would hang out with, her friends, and we had Jewish neighbors in our neighborhood, and it was just a normal kind of like, they'd come over for coffee and talk about all different topics. And I used to love just being normal and going out playing, with my friends
And so
in
I
our
think
neighborhood.
I've seen you speak of kind of the both ends of the spectrums when you went to visit Lucy's home, the opulence of Beverly Hills and things like that. And then kind of going back to the valley. Now I'm in California, so I know what the valley is. So what did that do to you in your mind as a child? Um, kind of going back and forth from, sparkling big to, you know, just normal everyday living.
Well, it was kind of like having a job. My job was to act,
Hmm.
and my normal life was to have fun as a kid and to do things that normal kids do. And in the valley, I had that life, that normal life. And then when I went to Beverly Hills, um, a lot of times I didn't really want to go. I told my dad, I didn't really want to go. I mean, I was hanging out with my friends. We were having great, like a summer, whatever. We were doing things and going to the beach or whatever, just hanging out, playing baseball or whatever. Um, and then my dad would say, "Well, Lucy said Desi Jr. wants you to come over for the weekend or whatever." So I would have to kind of like drop everything and kind of like, okay, go over there. And I kind of reluctantly went there, but every time I went to their home, I always got along great with the kids, with Desi Jr. and Lucy, and we would have fun. We grew up together. We were like brothers and sisters to a certain extent, but it was a different kind of life,
Hmm.
expectations, uh, manners, etiquette. Uh, to be in that arena as opposed to the normal kid arena uh, in the valley.
And so after you did Lucy, then you moved on to the Andy Griffith Show. Was that immediate, or was there like a lull where you didn't have anything to do?
I think I was like on the unemployment line for a couple of.
At 9 years old. Oh my
I
God.
was I was collecting unemployment for a little short while in between there, and yeah, 9 years old. That's right. And but my um, I guess because I was signed to Desi Lou Studios for a 7-year contract, they sort of like kind of halfway fulfilled it through. I had a small part on the Andy Griffith Show. I played Johnny Paul Jason,
Hmm.
who was Opie's best friend on the show. I was on about 12 episodes, and I thoroughly enjoyed, being on that show. That show, it was filmed different. It was a whole different story. It was a whole different
Hmm.
bunch of people, and I really did enjoy my time just being on that show in Hollywood. It wasn't as much pressure. Let's put it that way.
So it's
Uh,
kind of like what the Mayberry was on TV. He kind of continued being the same people off screen.
they did, yeah. They basically were kind of like who they were, and they would play checkers and chess in the makeup department, and Andy would strum guitar and play gospel hymns, and they just kind of like, it was just this old folksy kind of Southern vibe, which I like because originally that's where I came from, was the South. And so in California, I always dreamed about living in the South. And unfortunately, how I got back to the South from California was through my mom and dad's marriage,
Mm.
separation and divorce. So that was the unfortunate thing about that. But I always loved my grandparents who were from Lafayette, and I just looked up to my, and another thing, when we moved from Louisiana, from California back to Louisiana from my mom and dad's divorce, my aunts and uncles took us in, took our family in, and supported us and cooked for us, and just my mother didn't have a job. She had to go back to school. I think she went to secretarial school and was trying to make some money, because back in those days, we didn't have anything.
And you had 5 other siblings, right?
And I had 5 younger brothers and sisters.
Wow. So for the television show, I think Ziva, you're a fan of the Andy Griffith Show?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
I actually on the list of shows, now please, all of my followers, don't hate me, but that is my go-to show when I just need like
a pick-me-up.
I don't know, it's just such a feel-good show. And I can't there's so many times where it's just like, I wonder what it would have been like to be either someplace like that or even on set, because I have also read that it's just that it was almost a continuation of Mayberry, that it was just a more relaxed set. And so I did want to ask, I know you touched on some of the few things that you liked. Do you have like a favorite memory, either, a favorite scene or a favorite thing that happened during the filming of that show specifically?
When the last show that I was on was Opie Learns to Dance, or